tangata whenua o tēnei rohi, Ngāti Wheki, mō Kaitahu, kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, e ngā kaimahi ki Lyttelton Port Company, no mai haramai ki tēnei hui. He ngā hoe whā, ngā iwi o te motu, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Greetings, everybody. We'll just begin with a karakia that talks about we've got to watch out for the cold winds that come from the west and the south, and that we need to steel ourselves to challenge those and to move ahead into good times. So if you know whakatakataho, please join in. Whakatakataho ki te uru, whakatakataho ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Give yourselves a big clap, please, a big welcome to yourselves. It is so good to see such a fantastic turnout tonight. I was a bit nervous about it, and I know other people were, but in fact, what we're seeing here is a reflection of the deep, deep concerns at what's been unfolding over the last couple of weeks. So thank you all for being here. This is the most important meeting happening in Christchurch probably this month, maybe even this year. So thank you for being here. And just before we get underway, just remember this. Even before we start this meeting, we have the people of Christchurch solidly behind us in this campaign, because every time that every time there's a local body election, every time we've got a new council elected, there's always attempts to sell our assets, and yet year after year, decade after decade, the people of Christchurch have said, we do not want our assets sold. We don't want them privatised in any way. 70% of the people of Christchurch said that in the last survey a couple of years ago. So we are on the side of the majority. We are running this campaign for the people of Christchurch. So again, give yourselves a big round of applause, people. I have to say, there's not many campaigns that I've been involved in where you start as the majority, but this is one of them. So let's celebrate that in itself. Okay, look, we've got some really good speakers here who are going to outline the issues we face, and then we're going to have, and during the speakers at various stages, we've got 3 resolutions that are going to be moved. And then once those resolutions are over, we're going to call for some resolutions from the floor, and I think there's at least one that's ready to go. And then we're going to have a Q&A, and after that, we'd like you to, if you have time, to stay behind and just mix and mingle. We'd like you to meet with someone else who's a like-minded person on this issue. Meet and make acquaintance with them, and don't leave before you put your name on one list. I'm sure there's a list somewhere. Put your name down so you can be kept in touch with the developments which are going on. So kia ora koutou. So without any further ado, let's give a huge welcome here to Mark from the local Rail and Maritime Workers Union. Kia ora, Mark. Just before I introduce Mark, I was going to say, in every campaign of privatisation, in every campaign that attacks our public services, it is the workers that are on the front line of the struggle. If it's our hospitals, it's our doctors and nurses that take up the cudgels. If it's in our education system, it's our teachers. And here at the port, it's the RMTU and the other unions involved. So give them another round of applause, people. Woohoo!
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, John. I was just saying to Sarah, always a hard act to follow, John. Done it a few times. This is deja vu. I've only been in the role for 3 years, or 4, and I've already dealt with this issue twice, potentially 3 times. It's getting bloody ridiculous. So Thank you, first of all, to NZDE for organising this event. Thank you very much. Thank you to our brothers Muns for hosting the event, and also this is the Watersiders Hall. A lot of history here, so quite auspicious really to be in here tonight. Also, thank you to, we've got a website up and running. Thank you to Zoe, who spent a lot of time doing that for free, or at least for, putting her effort in there. So thank you very much. And thank you to the community, to you all for turning up. Really appreciate it. And to councillors also, and maybe even some Member of Parliament people, whether or not. But thank you all for being here. You've packed this place out and we really appreciate it. So thank you. Also, thank you to Phil Major. I just was listening to RNZ this morning, and he said, he just reiterated that he was voted on not leasing or selling the port, and he just wanted to make that very clear. So thank you very much, Phil, because you've certainly made it a lot easier for me now. I was wondering, I'm sure Gerard as well was also wondering, who were the swing voters in council, but we don't have to worry now because Phil sorted that out. So no problems there. So he obviously won't have any problem bringing this back into council and actually having a vote on it. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll be reminding him as well. However, just on that note though, we will continue with this campaign, just to be sure. And part of this campaign, we have 4 priorities that we would like you all to become more familiar with, and I think may make up a resolution or 2 later on this evening. So I'd just like to reiterate these priorities, the campaign priorities that we've focused on, the unions are focusing on, and we actually think they're very progressive priorities, and they're also looking for change so that we don't have to keep revisiting this. The first priority is that we want to see, we want the council to amend the draft CCHL statement of intent. Now that is, CCHL is the holdings company that is supposedly thinking that they're going to make a decision on our infrastructure. We want the council to demand that statement of intent, essentially their operating rules, that needs to be amended to reflect the CCC, the council's letter of expectation. That also will mean that council votes, not CCHL. That's the first priority. The second, build a partnership or a relationship, or both, with Ngāti Wheke and the other runanga. We're actually quite focused on that, the unions. We have a lot of mana whenua within our unions, and it's a bit disappointing that we haven't had the connection, and that things have got to a point now where, we were a little bit surprised with how things have played out. So we're going to be looking to reconnect, build relationships, and understand moving forward. The third priority is we want to remove governance that doesn't recognise mana whenua and the combined unions as strategic partners of Lyttelton Port. Okay? And the fourth one, which is possibly one of the major reasons why we're here today, is that DP World must not enter New Zealand. So I'll just finish off by saying that there will be a loud union meeting. We will let you all know when. It's probably better not to announce it just yet. It will be in town, and you're all invited. So please attend, please bring your families, bring your friends, and reach out to all the networks that you have, because tonight is a great start, but it needs to keep going. Thank you.
We're going to move. Stacey? Give Stacey a warm welcome. Woo!
Can you guys hear me without the mic at the back? I do talk pretty loud. I'm reading one, but and I am by the translation. When you're reading from the panel, I think it's a problem of community groups, typically that's organisations, social businesses, and individuals, allied to facilities for providing a combined public voice to further representatives and public funds and control. And part of fucking cost is something we see about in that region.
All those in favour, give an even louder round of applause, people. Woo, 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 woo. That's off to a really great start. I think it's been, well, yeah, that was moved and seconded, wasn't it? Yep. Kia ora. We're on the way, people. Our next speaker is coming in from Australia, is it? Ed? This is Ed. Ed's coming in to talk about, now Ed is from a group called SICTAR. I'm going to leave him to explain that acronym. And but just before I do that, he's going to be talking about DP World. You know, if you lined up all the corporations in the world and you said, which would be the worst one to own a company in New Zealand? I'll tell you what, DP World, I could go on and on about this, but they're really, truly disgusting organisation. And Ed's going to tell us why. Okay? Kia ora, Ed. Welcome to the meeting, Ed. Woo, woo, woo.
Kia ora. Can everybody see and hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I can't see anything, so I can hear you really well, though. You sound amazing. Kia ora koutou, ko Edward Miller toka whenua. My name's Ed, and I'm a researcher for an organisation called the Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research, or CICTAR. I will not be repeating that name again because it's much too long. We do action-oriented corporate research with union and community partners around the world. Our focus is looking at issues like tax, profit extraction, and corporate accountability. And in the case of DP World, there's a lot to talk about. We've done quite a bit of research work on DP World, primarily looking at their footprint in Australia for our comrades at the Maritime Union of Australia. I wanted to run you through some of the findings of that research, but before I get to that, I wanted to also talk you through a sort of hypothetical analysis on what the costs of port privatisation would be in this particular instance. And I'm using that term kind of broadly, privatisation. I know what's on the table is not a traditional privatisation in the sense of an asset being sold, but it's a concession, which is a privatisation of rights, and it gives a private player the opportunity to run a port for their own benefit and their own profit. So I don't think we should be too precious about language. What's being proposed here is privatisation, plain and simple. This is a hypothetical analysis because I actually wrote this in the Doha airport. I've been very busy recently. I was just in Pakistan trying to push back against the privatization of electricity distribution companies there, just like we have problems with the electricity sector. Christchurch still owns its electricity distribution company. So congratulations, all you people down there who fought the good fight and kept it public. This is a hypothetical analysis because it's not really clear exactly what's on the table from the consortium of DP World and Tonui, but it's a like-for-like comparison to try and work out what the costs are if what is being put on the table was being proposed in terms of both proposals. Essentially, we're looking at two measures, the borrowing costs of the project and the profitability of the project, just to get a very flat comparison of what it would look like in the case of a 30-year concession in which a $900 million port expansion is being built. Looking at the numbers, the conclusion that I reached is that over a 30-year period, that higher cost of borrowing that would come from a DP World project, and the higher demand for profitability would put another $1 billion worth of costs onto the people of Christchurch, onto the broader community, another $1 billion worth of finance costs and profits extracted from your community, taken offshore for other people's benefit. That's $1 billion put on top of your bills, on top of your costs over a 30-year period. No matter how you wrap that up, it's going to be a lot more cost. The starting point for this is that CCHL, the current owner of Lyttelton Port, has a much better credit rating than DP World does. CCHL has an AA- with a stable outlook credit rating. That's about as good as you can get outside of the New Zealand government, which has the best credit rating in town. DP World is BBB positive, which is still pretty good, but over a long period of time, that difference really stacks up. And the way that DP World structures their borrowing also makes it a lot more punitive. It ends up that you get a situation where DP World, instead of doing like a mortgage-like structure where you pay off a chunk of the principal each year, tends to do what's called bullet bonds. Bullet bonds means that they have a bond structure that lasts throughout the period of borrowing, and then they either pay it all off at the end of the 25-year period, or they refinance it and go for another round. So it means that you're paying finance costs over the whole period. And again, that is paid by the people of Lyttelton. The difference in a bullet bond, DP World ranked finance costs and CCHL's finance costs comes to $588 million over that time period. When you add to that the increased demand for a higher return on equity from DP World versus Lyttelton Port Company, you end up with another $456 million worth of money pulled out of the pockets of working people in Christchurch. So put together that increased cost of financing and the increased demands for profitability is another $1 billion taken out of the pockets of your community, another $1 billion that can't go into health, education, community projects, developing the local economy, all of that kind of thing, because it ends up going into the pockets of offshore investors and an offshore company like DP World. It is a huge cost that will be borne by all of you. And look, I know it's not a like-for-like proposal that's on the table, but if you were comparing with apples, this is what these two projects look like side by side, another $1 billion in cost. Now, there might be other benefits that come from having private sector management. I'm yet to see them in my lifetime, but those benefits would have to be pretty damn substantial to make up for that $1 billion worth of additional cost. One factor to consider in that regard is to say, well, if a company is more profitable, then they're likely to pay more tax, right? Because you get taxed on profits, in theory. Well, we've documented how this works in the Australian context. The short version of this is that from 2014 to 2023, DP World didn't pay a cent in corporate tax to the Australian Tax Office, despite earning more than $500 million in every single one of those years that they did business in Australia. Coincidentally, they paid their first ever chunk of corporate income tax that we've been able to document anyway in 2024. That was $31.8 million. That was the year after we released our first report on DP World, saying that they pay next to no tax. We looked in quite a bit of detail at their financial statements, and you can see really large transactions with other companies within the DP World group. And those other transactions have the effect of reducing their taxable income. Australia has some of the best corporate disclosure rules on the planet. We still can't see where those transactions are going, but from the list of subsidiaries that they interact with, it looks likely that they're either to the Cayman Islands or the Netherlands, both of which serve as tax havens for this purpose of this discussion. In both 2023 and 2024, DP World paid themselves management fees of $24.2 million for their Australian operations, pushing down their taxable income. They also paid finance costs to themselves of $42 million in 2023 and another $30 million in 2024 to themselves, right? All of that has the effect of reducing taxable income and reducing the amount of tax that they pay in Australia. In other words, it can be assumed that DP World would be using the same kind of related party finance costs in Lyttelton Port operation to reduce its New Zealand taxable income, which would likely have the effect of destroying any positive social impact that might come from a potentially more profit-extracting port. The Australian experience has also seen DP World substantially increase their revenue by jacking up landside port charges to local operators. Again, these are charges that eventually get extracted from the local community. More costs thrown onto you guys if you end up lumped with a DP World port in your neighbourhood. And most recently, DP World unveiled plans to drastically reduce employment levels across its 4 Australian ports through radical AI-based automation. Workers at the Lyttelton Port, just like the workers at DP World's 4 Australian ports, pay a lot of tax. They spend in the local economy, and their employment supports a whole lot of economic activity right across the region. We're concerned that rolling out AI automation technologies at container ports not only cuts the substantial tax payments that are made by their workforce, but it's also going to open up a whole lot of new opportunities for companies like DP World to reduce their taxable incomes using the same kind of transactions that I've just been talking about: royalty payments, intellectual property assets that are domiciled in tax havens, all complicated ways of cheating the tax man out of funding public services. We can already see evidence of this from financial statements for their operations in South Korea, where their automation plans are more advanced. We're really happy that the work that we've done with the Maritime Union of Australia has helped contribute to them getting around the table with DP World and to negotiate on how new technologies are going to be rolled out. It's a really big discussion at the moment in Australia, and the Australian government's just unveiling new rules around how all that's going to happen, and that's as a result of the campaign that's been pushed by the MUA. The MUA, like MUNS and like RMTU, are strong unions. We remain extremely concerned for workers in some of the many other countries where DP World does business, where unions are weak, union rights are severely constrained. It's therefore super important that you guys rally strongly around MUNS and around RMTU to push back against this brutal demand from a company with a track record of exploiting communities for all they are worth, and support their demands to keep the Lyttelton Port public and to engage with the Ngāi Tahu Rūnanga in a constructive way that honours the tino rangatirotanga over their region and keeps these assets in public ownership for the benefit of all of us, particularly the workers, but the entire community who will pay a huge cost from privatising these assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Ed. I don't know if Ed's still there, but what a fantastic presentation, telling us, you know, in words of, oh, he is there. All right, you are there. Good on you, Ed. I was just singing your praises here and saying what a fantastic presentation that was. You know, if we could get that bottled, we could sell it in here, sell it around the world. This is the point I want to make from what Ed said about the extraction of profit that comes from a deal like this. This is how it's supposed to work for DP World and for other privatisations. It's working exactly as planned. They have multiple ways that they can avoid paying tax, reduce pay, and make the whole deal incredibly sweet for them and very sour for us while we're not buying it. So again, thank you very much, Ed. Really appreciate your contribution. And now we've got the other main arm, I guess, of the unions at the port here. We've got Gerard Loader, who's the Secretary of MUNS, the Lyttelton branch. Give him a big welcome, people. Woo, woo, woo.
Is that on? Yeah, sweet. Right, good evening, everyone. I hope you found finding this evening informative, and thank you for coming along tonight. My name is Gerard Loader. I am the Secretary at the Lyttelton branch of the Maritime Union of New Zealand and the National Vice President of the Maritime Union of New Zealand. I'm also one of the ex-foremen made redundant at LPC on the 1st of April due to a restructure when profits surpassed safety in the current management's thinking. I'm here to talk to you tonight, not just as a union official, but as someone who was born, grew up, married, had children, and works in this awesome little town we call the Village. Lyttelton was a hive of activity, a harbour full of ships, trucks, trains, seafarers and wharfies. There used to be hundreds of them because of the nature of the work. You could see them everywhere in every fish and chip shop, the supermarket, the hotels, barbers, TAB, dairies and chemists. They'd be on the rugby field, soccer ground, softball pitch, not only playing but also coaching. A fond memory was wondering if a coach would be at training or the game or would they be at work. But somehow they always made it work for us. Then along came containerisation in the 70s with the big ships, the big cargo exchanges which required fewer men to work them. So that meant less wharfies and seafarers in the community and less money going back to local businesses and more trucks on the roads. It was palpable. The shops were not so busy, bars were empty and even a drop-off in the volunteers in the community. But as Lyttelton does, it found a new way of supporting businesses, but unfortunately not all survived. Barber shops were the first to go, as there were not enough clients anymore, then the butchers, then the veggie shop, etc. In 2023, LPC appointed a new CEO in Graham Sumner and chair of the board in Barry Bragg after Kirsty Gardner, the CEO, and Margaret Devlin, the chair, walked away due to the plan restructure that they did not agree with. Not long after that, we started hearing rumours of plans to privatise city assets, with DP World being mentioned more than once. So with the support of the greater community, we lobbied council and demonstrated at the CCHL AGM achieving our goal of keeping our assets in public control, albeit with a lot of contorted right-leaning faces looking on in disappointment. As was the case, the battle was won, but the war is far from over. Since early 24, we have been challenging or asking all LPC management, board members, councillors, etc. about the persistent rumours of the DP World wanting to lease support operation as a way to get around the mandate of keeping the port in public ownership. And to a man, they have all denied or deflected the issue, saying they know nothing, or it is out of their hands, or we cannot interrupt the process as we have to follow due diligence, etc. Then to hear the announcement in June of Taunui, the three Rananga and DP World, putting in an unsolicited bid to CCHL for the leasing out of port operations for a 30-year contract was a slap in the face to not only employees at LPC, but the people and ratepayers of Christchurch have basically been lied to for the last 2 years by everyone, as DP World and Taunui have been negotiating behind closed doors on this. And in the words of LPC CEO Graham Sumner, the worst kept secret in Canterbury. Barry Bragg is chair of LPC board, was on the Ngaitahu property board for 7 years, and is the deputy chair of Stevenson's Limited, who specialise in concrete and construction. And when I asked directly to his face at the City Council meeting on the 3rd of June that he knew nothing about it, raises more questions on the competence and truthfulness of our city leaders than it answers. Whether the powers that be had full knowledge, or they truly knew nothing while a deal of this magnitude was being discussed, as a ratepayer, is deeply concerning. My point is, if this deal proceeds, it will be the end of your port being controlled by you in the interests of the Christchurch City, and all profits going back to the Canterbury region, but by a massive foreign monopoly who will only have their profit margin at the heart of the operation. Yes, with a deal like this, you can only assume an annual dividend will be paid to CCHL and Ngaitahu, but at what cost to you, the ratepayer? DP World will not even blink at price increases, staff layoffs and automation to maintain their profit margins. Gone will be the environment protections that you, the public, insist Christchurch City Council enforce, with the reclamation for the new container terminal, the catalyst for the divide between local Rananga and LPC over the past 3 to 4 years. DP World just don't care, as they're based offshore and don't answer to our laws. All they care about is making the royal family in Dubai more rich than the $20 billion they are worth now. Gone will be the public sponsorship, not only in Lyttelton, but the greater Christchurch area. Gone will be any say you have on the harbour development, as DP World has the lawyer power to fight anyone. And gone too will be the wharfies out of our community. And in their place will be robots and even more heavy trucks going through the already congested Lyttelton Road Tunnel and Bottom Street. Graham Sumner has stated in a speech to Lincoln University that partial automation will kill 120 more jobs on the wharf on top of the 27 that he got rid of on the 1st of April. I shudder to think what would happen to LPC employees with full automation that is the DP World operating model, let alone what will happen to the community of Lyttelton and Christchurch, as DP World doesn't pay the tax as explained in the countries they operate in, and their robots don't support local businesses or pay rates or volunteer to coach local teams or pay rent or anything. While costs for the exporters and you, the ratepayer, will skyrocket because history shows DP World will do whatever it takes to profit from their investment, and being 100% corporate, you can guarantee greater costs on the shelves for everyone, and when the sugar hit is over, greater rates rises, which result in more costs for business owners, property owners, renters, and goods coming through the port. However, I do not stand here tonight as a redundant wharfie and unionist, but as a member of the public and a ratepayer, that I urge you to implore you to rally against this DP World Taunui unsolicited bid to lease out port operations, because the social consequences are far too great for our she'll be right attitude. Most importantly, it is as a grandfather I stand here to a 2-year-old boy and urge you the most, because at what cost is his future? Not only in employment, but the actual cost of goods and rates if this corporate model is accepted. And he asks me, what did you do to fight it, Grandad? Hopefully I can answer my best. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gerard, and thanks very much for focusing on the social impacts here, because that's often something which is overlooked when we talk about the finance and we talk about the ownership and what have you. But the social impacts here will be tremendous if this deal is allowed to go through. I just want to say one thing about privatisation. We've had this said to us several times now by CCHL in the last few weeks that this is not privatisation. This is simply a management contract. Someone manages the port on our behalf. Well, and you know, we're not selling off anything. Well, in fact, what they're doing, what they're proposing to do, they're not going to sell the bricks and mortar, because DP World don't want that. DP World want to privatise the revenue stream, the income they get from running the port, and that income that comes in and helps to keep our rates low for Christchurch residents. That's what they want to do. They want to load a whole lot of debt onto us that is completely unnecessary, at the same time as stripping out the real value of the port. This is privatisation of the revenue stream. This is wrong. Right now, great pleasure to invite Sara to speak. Sara Campbell's going to speak, and I think she's going to read a resolution first. Is that right? Yep. So our second resolution for the night. Go, Sara.
But I'll do the resolution first. Resolution 2, Community Union Statement of Expectations. This meeting resolves the following priorities for the campaign to retain our port in public ownership and control. 1. Call on the Council to amend the draft CCH Statement of Intent to include the Council's letter of expectation, to wit, that the port should remain in full public ownership and control, and a private lease or any other arrangement involving transferring operational control of the port to private operators is unacceptable. 2. Build a partnership relationship with Ngāti Wheki and other Papatipu Runanga. 3. Remove governance at Lyttelton Port that doesn't recognise mana whenua and the combined unions as strategic partners of Lyttelton Port. 4. DP World must not enter New Zealand.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
All in favour? Passed. Did your job, mate.
Thank you.
Kia ora everyone. Ko Sara Campbell tēnei. It's so reassuring to see so many of you here tonight. I don't really see the point of me speaking because really it's been covered. Everyone's done such a good job at explaining the fundamentals of why private ownership is bad and DP World's track record. I thought first should say who I am. I'm a Lyttelton local. I've got 2 boys that have grown up here in Lyttelton, and I'm also an environmental campaigner. The same system that treats workers as disposable with low wages, unsafe conditions, and no say is the same system that treats our water, our forests, and our air as disposable. It's a system that puts aggressive profit seeking ahead of the well-being of communities, workers, and the environment. DP World has an appalling environmental record. For example, according to reports by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime, the UAE, specifically the Emirate of Dubai, the home base of DP World, acts as a major global transit corridor and hotspot for environmental crimes. It serves as a massive hub for illegal wildlife and flora trafficking. Increasingly, the drive to maximise shareholder profit is stripping away our ability to live healthy lives. The cost of living keeps climbing while oil companies, power companies, supermarkets and banks make record profits, often price gouging in times of crises. And much of that money doesn't even stay here. It's sent offshore to shareholders. We spend a lot of time in politics asking how we break up duopolies and oligopolies, and that take so much from us. Well, our port is a monopoly asset. There's no other port in our region this size. It's not feasible to build another port just to keep freight prices down. So if DP World takes over operations, their first priority will be shareholder profit. That means our freight prices go up. And when freight goes up, the price of almost everything goes up too. Leasing the port isn't just about one contract. It's a gateway to even more privatisation. DP World's own strategy is to acquire the whole supply chain. They call it an end-to-end service. But the reality is a privately owned company seizing profit and control across our entire logistics network. By the time the lease is up, they'll be so entrenched it'll be almost impossible to operate without them. And that gives them even more power to lobby for the next contract. Whatever promises DP World puts in the first contract doesn't mean much to me. They're far better resourced than we are to fight in court. And once given a foothold, their lobbying power increases over time. There will never be an easier time to stop DP World becoming entrenched in our country than now. I want to speak a bit about the current port management, LPC and CCHL. Who the hell do they think they are?
Yeah.
Can someone please remind them that we own the port?
Yeah.
How dare they proceed with a 7-hectare land reclamation without our consent?
Yeah.
A decision that has significant negative impacts on the ecological health of our harbour. We couldn't even hold our elected councillors accountable because the decision didn't even cross the council table. Now LPC is proposing an $800 million expansion with further land reclamation. And I fear we will be shut out of that decision too. We are living in a rapidly warming world. The last 11 years have been the hottest on record. Aotearoa now has the highest proportion of threatened species in the world. And right here in Whakaropō, the ecology is under immense pressure. This harbour is home to our nationally vulnerable Hector's dolphins. We need to be able to decide our own priorities. Priorities for our community, for our workers, for our ecosystem, not for a corporate balance sheet. I truly believe we can stop DP World, and I believe we can change how the port is run to a model where we're actually at the table, where mana whenua and the unions are strategic partners in decision making. If we're committed and if we stand together, we can do this. Ngā mihi nui.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's great to know that we've got people here in the local community that care so deeply about our environment and the places where we work. Another round of applause, people. Woo, woo, woo. Now, I've got the third resolution, which I'm going to put now. This is titled Call to Action. So listen carefully, and then hopefully we'll pass this one as well. We agree to take this campaign into our own communities. This includes delegations to community boards and council to pressure our public officials to not permit CCHL to privatise our port. 2, public activations and community mobilisation to show there is no public mandate for privatisation, including rallying outside CCHL offices in the city. 3, organise neighbourhood community meetings in our local council wards to show residents of all backgrounds and political leanings that we oppose privatisation. All those in favour? Come on. Yeah. Passed by it. I declare that passed. Under the powers I assume as chair of the meeting. Well done, people who've done 3 resolutions passed. That's fantastic. And what we're going to do now is we're going to throw it open to the floor for questions in particular. I don't know if Ed, are you still there? Can you come back on? Because we may have questions from, for Ed. Oh, before we do, oh, right. Does everybody recognise this person down the front here? Big round of applause.
1, 2, there we are. Thank you.
Gary
Right.
McCormick, kia ora.
It is a wonderful thing that you're here tonight because I've been thinking about this whole thing for a while and doing research. One of the unfortunate things about New Zealand in the last 20 years is that we have given away all sorts of things. For example, our power supply. Max Bradford, the National Party, many years ago said we're going to privatise the power and power prices will go down. They haven't gone down once in the last 35 years. I don't want this to echo. Can you hear this? Can I stop this? Okay. I have done the research about the rest of the world. So in the 1990s, you know, people bought shares and families put their savings into the share market. In the 1990s, the market collapsed. In 2008, once again, these companies in America set up all these mortgage things and people put their family savings into it. And all over the world, they looked up at screens and suddenly realised their family savings had gone. And Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers and all those smart asses, none of them went to jail. The guy of Bear Stearns, I'm coming back to the point in a moment, he actually stayed on and he got a $60 million American payout for staying on after he'd ruined the world's economy. Therefore, we can't trust big companies. This DP World outfit is one of the classic ones. They are one of the ones who are going around the world ripping everybody off. Now, the good news is, and thank you, Gerard, and thank you, everybody on the stage, and thank you, Sarah. The good news is we know they're assholes in advance. And the other thing we have on our side is we are a village, so we can stop them. They will not take over our port. We will decide. My father worked for Fletcher's and put the light bulbs in the tunnel that was being blasted. You know, he actually worked for Fletcher's. And every night they would blast their way through the tunnel more. My father had to get up on a ladder and replace all the light bulbs coming through the tunnel here. So I know about the tunnel. So here's the bad news for DP World and the council and the CCHL, whatever the hell it is, all these acronyms I hate. Here's the bad news. We own the tunnel. We own the port. We have been, people in New Zealand have been patient for far too long. And this shit goes on day after day, year after year. It's destroyed the savings of people in New Zealand, it's destroyed all of our business economy. The green shoots never came through, and here we are. Well, what we can do is, the great news is, we can stop this from happening. Because guess what? There's only one tunnel. We can, yeah. We can fuck them left, right and centre, believe me. It's so easy. And all sorts of people are going to be on our side. Truckies, wharfies, seamen, everybody's going to be on our side. We're going to do this. So I'm going to read a wee resolution here, and I know you're going to support it, but I'm so proud to be able to read it out. Resolution 4. This meeting resolves. Now, if there are any media people here, and there are media people here, and if the council people are here, if the port company's here, if any DP World won't be here because they're always cowards, they never turn up to any meeting. You know, if you want to have a meeting with the public, they will never face it. Okay, here's our resolution. We're going to pass this. It will be published, and it goes with this underlining italics message here. I'll come back to that. This meeting resolves that the local Lyttelton community is declaring this far and no more. This far and no more. The local community of Lyttelton, its residents, local businesses, local associations will continually mobilise here not to allow any privatisation of the port. If CCHL takes this decision independently, or if the council votes to approve this deal with DP World, there will be direct action. There is only one tunnel in and out of Lyttelton. It's never going to happen. We're going to give them hell. It's not going to have got a chance. Thank you, team. Cheers.
Do we want to move that? All right, I'll move it. Second it. All in favour? Passed. Nice work.
Resolution got the loudest applause of all the resolutions. So thank you very much, Gary. Thank you for bringing that from the local community here. Kia ora koutou. Right, we're going to have questions for the team here, and if Ed can come on, then we'll get questions there as well. We've got one in the front here for a start. Kia ora.
Kia ora, my name's Drusilla Kingi-Patterson. I've done 30 years of politics and I lobby on emergency management, and I'm developing a mapping system and lobbying and speaking to the councils and environment cannibals on the restructuring. I've only just come on board, but when I read this pamphlet to find that the Dubai royal family were part owners or controlling body of this proposed group, I have a real problem with that, because this now is putting us under another crown. So we're actually talking about our sovereignty. Well, I'm Maori. I've got a Scottish grandfather who's Irish. I've got Dad's side, and there's 10 of them. I've got a nagging twin. My mum loves the royal family, and I do too, and I love Lady Diana, and I collect dolls. And now you've got somebody coming in through the back door. But more than anything else, on the 5th of this month, I'm actually speaking on the restructuring of the merging of Waimakariri, Selwyn, Christchurch. We're talking corporate structures. I've actually developed a 30-year plan, and that means the first 3 years of the councils, the next 3 years of doing your regional councils. The Environment Canterbury, I know it might sound separate, but it's very important. Environment Canterbury are sitting in a $60 million building with 500 staff. Right, we're talking about while they're restructuring, we could have another earthquake. The port is really strategic for our emergency management. Bottom line, you do not sell it off, you do not trade it off. I've also put a proposal that we need to fundraise for 2 railway stations. I've already presented on that, and I'm joined the Alliance, and I will be a strategic planner for them for that we have to do this. So I'm totally against it. I'm Taranaki iwi, all right, and my kaupapa is the water, and 3 waters and everything else, okay? So I'm the annoying Mary.
It's really good if people have got questions to come up to the front mic. So, yep, we've got a couple coming up, so just go for it.
Hi everyone, I'm Simone. I have a question. Can someone please just explain to me about the consortium, Tau Nui Consortium? Dr. Liz Brown is the overarching spokesperson. I'm just keen to understand how it's come to be that they have joined forces with DP World, and why is it in their interests? Why are they lobbying for this? Just a 101 summary answer would be great.
So Ngāti Wheke is whakaropo. The other 2 hapu are situated in Midlands, the Midlands Port, and also City Depot. So those are the other reasons why the other hapu are involved. I had a look at a submission a little while ago to the annual plan by Ngāti Wheke, and it was, I've never really watched other people give submissions or organisations give submissions. It's generally just been me doing it, you know, beating my own drum, or the unions. It was quite compelling. I'd actually suggest everybody go and, you know, go and look up the submission that Ngāti Wheke made to the annual plan. I think it was on the 14th of April this year. Very interesting. It sort of felt like they continue to fall on deaf ears. And so on that sense, that's part of the reason why I think the unions are yet to really engage, and we hope to do so. Liz Brown, Dr. Liz Brown, that's the consortium. We're really interested in speaking to the local mana whenua, actually, and so when we know more, we'll let you know. How's that?
Okay, I think that what the local iwi involvement underlines is the absolute failure of the Lyttelton Port Company to develop relationships with local iwi. And our second resolution, you would have heard, called on the development of those relationships. What's happened at the port under Graham Sumner is that they have abandoned all relationships. They have downgraded their relationship with the unions. They have had a focus on profit making, but the focus has been not to develop any wider relationship with the local community here, or with local iwi, or with the unions. And we want, in our second resolution, we want Lyttelton Port Company to develop those relationships. If they had, then, as Mark says, the forerunners here, Ngāti Wheke, have been trying to engage with our council, trying to build those relationships. The Lyttelton Port Company won't. And so they've ended up in this position they're in at the moment. And I think it's a pretty bad position for them. And it's a bad position for the whole of Christchurch. So, yeah.
We feel like we're in the same boat, essentially.
Yeah, the unions are in the same boat. The Lyttelton Port Company under Graham Sumner has been the relations with unions. They've gone away from collaboration. They've become a dictatorship there, and that needs to change if we're going to if we're not going to have these debates every second year. Privatise, privatise, privatise. Kia ora. Next question.
I'm just going to have to go manually. Hi, Maritime Union of New Zealand. Oh, here we go, double power. Also Alliance Party leader, but that's just a separate thing tonight. However, I'm up from Dunedin today, and this is an interesting thing for me to be at because I just think it's very worthwhile noting that you are not alone in this campaign, because every port in New Zealand and workers throughout New Zealand and communities throughout New Zealand are all behind what you're trying to do, all of them. And I can say that for the Maritime Union. I'm sure it's certainly true for the Rail and Maritime Transport Union, two very powerful unions in this country. But not only that, internationally this is being watched too, because as our mate Ed has said, we know that DP World is an international operator. In Australia, they've got a very bad record there. So we've got the MUA, the Maritime Union of Australia, on side. And further afield, we've got the International Transport Workers Federation, which is transport workers throughout the world, and the International Dock Workers Council too, who are backing this campaign. And it feels funny because 20 years ago, some of you old timers might remember, there was a similar campaign when Hutchison tried to get in here. And what happened to them? Never heard of them again. Long gone. You can thank Port Chalmers for that, because we won't get into the history tonight, because I know this is supposed to be a question rather than a 10-minute rave. But I just will wind up by saying I think it's important to note that we have that support there for you guys. And I think if I technically correct to be here, I have to drop in a question. So I'll just say at the end, I think I'd just like to hear maybe one or two comments from the panel about how we could look at a different model. Say, for example, what we've got at the ports of Auckland these days was a very bad port in terms of its management, has now become a very good port in terms of its relationship with workers in the community. And that kind of tripartite model might be a way, and of course including the mana whenua, of working in Lyttelton in the future. So any thoughts on models outside New Zealand or outside Canterbury?
Yes, thanks for that, Victor. That is the plan. What Victor's talking about is called a tripartite agreement in Auckland, where the Auckland Port, the City Council and the unions are all on the same page. They've turned that port around. It's gone from just making $1, and they project within the next 5 years it's going to be giving the City of Auckland $2 million a week. That's how much I've turned it around. Relations are good and that. So that is a model this is why we want to reach out to Ngāti Wheke. This is why we're talking to Te Tai Tonga, anyone candidates for Te Tai Tonga, both Greens, Labour, anyone. We're reaching out to them because we want to form that alliance with the Rananga to keep them involved, because we know how LPC have treated them. So we want a partnership with the Rananga, the council, and ourselves, so we can actually tell LPC what to do and go about it. So that's our vision moving forward.
Sorry, actually, just before you go there, the key thing there is it's $2 million a week sustainably. That's a sustainable profit. That's key.
Kia ora, ko Sage Tukuinga. I just want to say I'm a journalist and an author, and I did some research into DP World. And in February, the head of DP World stood down because of his close relationship with Epstein. He was on the Epstein files. He went to the island. This wasn't just in paper. He was actually involved in this trafficking of women. So just the sort of company we want to come into our port, isn't it? At the very time negotiations, I understand, were going on, this is not about grassroots. This is corporations. This is the brogligarchy. These are the worst sort of people, and this is the kind of legislation we've got. This is the tragedy we've got now, is it's not about grassroots. When I speak to my kaitahu friends, they don't know anything about this because they've been dealing with people. They offer money. It's corrupt. That's all I can say as I look at them. They were even involved in a mercenary army, setting up a mercenary army in Africa. They start off leasing, then they get into ownership, they get into the infrastructure, and this is all documented. The Intercept, an independent media, very, very good and reliable, has documented this. Look it up. Head of DP World, Canada and US dropped associations with them while we were conducting negotiations secretly, as far as I can see. And sorry, it's not really a question, but did we know about this?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Helen Lynham. I'm a retired tax specialist, and I've come over from Diamond Harbour to this meeting because we're obviously directly affected by the port as well, and a lot of our people work here. I really just want to give you some encouragement. Graham Sumner was previously the CEO of Airways, and you probably remember that he tried to close a lot of towers all around the country. And ALPA, the union for Airline Pilots Association, who are the union for all the pilots in New Zealand and the air traffic controllers, beat him. And he had to back right down, and we were just gobsmacked when we heard that he'd got the job here. Yeah. And I can reiterate everything that you've said, Ed, about transfer pricing, because I've had a lot of experience with how multinational companies transfer all their profits to offshore tax havens and you end up with nothing. So I just thought I'd give you a bit of encouragement. Keep going. You can beat them.
Right, I'm the ex-secretary of the Lyttelton, just recently retired. Gary's took over for me about a month ago. Gary, there's 2 tunnels in Lyttelton. There's a rail tunnel as well. Listen, Graham Sumner came here to destroy the port. Now, don't think he didn't do anything different. He made the port unprofitable. He's made people redundant, like Gerard, and that made it inefficient, unsafe. All for the reason to make it sellable or leased out. Don't get me on that track. But my big question to the panel is, Ngāi Tahu, the Ranangas and that, we had a good colleague there 12 months ago or 2 years ago who kept us informed about this. He's recently passed last year. Have we got anybody contacts in the Runanga that's going to keep us up to date with what's happening with the CCHL?
Yes, I'm talking to, he is a young local lad, Joseph Tyro. He's just been... This is how I talk to the guys at our union meetings here. His name's Joseph Tyro. He's a Lyttelton lad from the Tyro family. If you don't know who the Tyros are over here, the same as tell a Tyro, tell a town. There's no secrets with them. But he has just been put on the board of Ngāi Tiki, and Joe and me go way back, and just our last conversation was 2 days ago up in London Street. So yeah, we are taking it into consideration. With Mananui Ramsden, who's going to cover the whole South Island for us. So I've got his phone number there and we're talking with him to get away from search. Any other questions? No.
Russ Harris, just a layabout really in town. The question is, we live in a political climate at the moment, which encourages the kind of activity that's going on in the port, the kind of activity that's going on in lots of places around the world. We live with a cabal of politicians who see the whole of New Zealand as something they can sell to overseas corporations. So my question is, don't you think that we need to get rid of those people before we can get any real traction going with everything else? And part of this is the same thing. That's my question. Thank you.
Graham Sumner has form. I didn't realise that. So thank you for that contribution. And it raises the question, was Graham Sumner brought here to prepare the port for privatisation? I think they're all the signs. If you were looking at circumstantial evidence in a court case, you'd say it's overwhelming that he was brought here precisely for that. The fact that they've been having discussions with DP World and Lyttelton Port over 2 or 3 years at least, and then we end up with this unsolicited proposal. They knew that it would be difficult to present this as just DP World, so DP World have not fronted this. They haven't. They've used local iwi to front it for them, and I think that says more about DP World than anything.
John, was that a question?
It was not. It was a statement of fact.
Oh, I think you asked the question, though. Just to reiterate what you've said, but also that Graham Sumner was appointed by Barry Bragg. So the chair of LPC, Barry Bragg, has been on CCHL, and he was on CCHL whilst the Northington report was flying around. We managed to get rid of the Northington report. I think some of you probably might remember this. A lot of help to one of a very good councillor in the Heathcote ward there. Did a lot of work. It comes back to governance. It comes back to the people who are appointing these executive management people to carry out their tasks. Graham Sumner's a hired gun. That's it.
He ran down. Yeah.
Kia ora. Ko Robina. I'm a local and a local business owner and a crazy systems person. And I'm impelled to talk in terms of my quest or my question is to see whether or not we can embrace eons, the questions of the longer thing to be looking after our 7 generations and to be considering what has been already set up in place. You know, we're fighting the TPPA and there's been lots of fights along the way where they've been looking at multinational takeovers. We can see in South America where 10% of the water is now drinkable. The rest is full of arsenic and they continue to plunder. As the globe is warming, the fish stocks are moving down here. We have the last remaining ocean. We are the guardians to the last continent.
This port has been dredged by the largest dredger in the world. That wasn't for a cruise ship. We fight about the cruise ships, but I think we have to start asking the question about the great extraction. The Northern Hemisphere is suffering, right? Their oceans, their lands are suffering, and their people are suffering in terms of wars and everything. And when we look at what other nations are doing, the whole Belt and Road, the whole reconfiguration of what the planet looks like according to Trump, there is a whole lot of plans as to whether or not this is the strategic port for that extraction. We have to really guard. We are the guardians of this. This is our thing for our future generations. And I am fully embrace that the iwi and that they need to be here at the table. We are supporting each other in terms of looking after this land and this waters. And that's my quest. and to keep in mind and heart that there is a lot more at stake. There's a lot more at stake. And yes, I totally agree that the way the strategy is to completely destroy assets and then make it so that it's really easily, and it seems like a rational thing to sell it as if it isn't valuable. It is one of the most valuable assets that we have. And we saw post-earthquake, this was one of the only ports that was locally owned. All of our businesses were locals. Hell, half of us lived up Wallace Road. You know, I mean, honestly, there's the way that we were all worn down and people left, and what happened? What's happened to those lands? What's happened to those things, those communities? Where are the community places now? They disappeared. They've disappeared off to Timaru, to overseas, to wherever, to Australia. And now we sit there and we watch empty sites while everyone competes as to whether or not they're going to have high-rise buildings there. So, let's look after this water. This is whakarapa, right? This was a food basket. Yeah, that's what I've got to say.
Righto, for the last 10 minutes before we wind up the meeting, the last 10 minutes, there's an amazing amount of collective wisdom in this room, right? A huge amount of experience. For 10 minutes, can we have ideas, people come forward and speak very briefly and very directly to ideas for the mobilisation of the people of Christchurch to stop DP World, firstly, and secondly, to stop us having to come back year after year after year and fight these buggers again when we know the community isn't totally opposed to them. So keep those two ideas in your heads, and can we have people coming to the fore and just giving a brief, this is my idea, okay? How can we mobilise to stop DP World in the first instance?
If I can, we sort of have a plan on that, and we're going to mobilise to CCHL office on the 31st of this month. So that's when we know that CCHL are discussing this, but it was the 31st, so we're going to be there. We're putting messages out to all the union members. We're encouraging all the public to come along, and just what time? Good question. We thought it was 1 p.m, but apparently it's not. So, yeah, Mark might know the time on that one.
RMTU is going to be hopefully holding a union meeting on the streets of Christchurch on Cambridge Terrace, and we'll be passing some resolutions and making sure everyone hears them. So that'll be... we're working on being down there at 8 o'clock. We understand that that's when people on the board start to go in to consider things, and so we're just going to need to make sure that we're there so that they know that we're there, and then we'll hang around. So join us. We'll put out a bit more information soon, but it'll be the morning of the 31st of July. 151 Cambridge Terrace.
What time?
The morning.
Any time after 8 a.m.
We'll sort that out. We'll sort it all out. Don't worry, I think.
So after the 31st, our next hit is the 13th of August. And that's when Christchurch City Council are having a meeting.
Oh, thank you. Kia ora koutou, ko Mani Ainsworth Takawangua. I have been involved in many anti-privatisation campaigns over the years, and I'm very hopeful with the changes that are going on around the world that this may well be the last one. We will need to organise. This is not going to be a short-term campaign. Getting rid of DP World is just the beginning. The relationship that we need to build with mana whenua is going to be one that is dealt with slowly and with respect and with recognition of the autonomy of the decision-making of both the unions and mana whenua. It will require a change. Strategic partnership is not something that comes easily, and for it to be able to happen, we need constitutional change. We need to stop talking about assets, and we need to start talking about our systems and our networks that we depend on for our community well-being. This needs to be written into the constitution of CCHL, and it needs to be written into the standing orders of this Christchurch City Council. The Christchurch City Council in February, after years of campaigning, reiterated in their letter of expectation to CCHL that there was to be no privatisation, that public ownership was the go, there was to be no leasing, there was to be a living wage, and there was to be a whole range of other things, and CCHL have ignored it. Not only that, but at the last meeting of the Finance and Performance Committee, a staff recommendation was made that the draft statement of intent complied with that letter of expectation. It does not. It did not. So today, Keep Our Assets have put a formal complaint into Christchurch City Council and asked for that resolution to be recommitted accurately. There is a narrative going around the council table that the council does not have the power to instruct. The clue is in the name, council-controlled organisations. The legislation provides for it. If necessary, the council needs to instruct CCHL on these things. Our campaigning cannot be worth nothing the way it currently is. So next Wednesday there'll be a meeting at 9:30, the Finance and Performance Committee. There will be submissions again made, change the statement of intent, change the marching orders, make these people understand that this is ours, not theirs. As has been said, the 31st of July, there will be something outside CCHL, and then we will know what it is, and I expect that shortly after that, there'll be a meeting called of all the community groups together. We will know what the campaign is, but we need to get rid of DP World. In the meantime, go back to your organisations, talk to them. You've got the resolutions. It'll be on the Keep Our Assets Facebook page, amongst many other websites, including NZDE, and I'm sure the unions as well. Take those. Send a letter through to, or an email through to the mayor, through to your councillor. Let people know we need to mobilise. Let's win this campaign.
Well, I think that's an appropriate note on which to wind up the meeting. I'll just say a couple of things in closing. One is that, just a reminder, about the 31st of July, 151 Cambridge Terrace at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the 13th of August, the Christchurch City Council meeting. If you can't remember those things, then you'll see them around on social media or on email. I want to raise one other issue here, which we haven't talked about tonight because tonight's about the port. But the CCHL, of their own volition, early this year, got an Australian company to assess Enable, which is our fibre network company, to assess Enable for sale. Now, this was something the people of Christchurch do not want, have never wanted, and as I said before, 70% say, no, we must not privatise our key assets. And CCHL says, oh, Enable's not a strategic asset at all. They say that it's old technology. Fibre's old technology. The new technology, and they said this to a COA delegation. Oh, I'm sorry if you're using fibre. You should be using Starlink because that's the future of. Now you just think. Let me just jump ahead and say one thing about that. Unfortunately, the next war is going to be fought between China and the US, and it'll be fought in space. And they are preparing for this now. The New Zealand Defence Force had a couple of months ago took part in a simulation of a nuclear explosion in space and what that would mean for New Zealand. What it would mean, they're going to target each other's satellites. And communications will become a really difficult situation. And so fibre is going to become incredibly valuable and incredibly important. This is one of our key assets. At the moment, it's a fibre company, but it could become a retail company where you purchase your internet access through Enable. Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't the Christchurch City Council do that for the people of Christchurch and us to have the cheapest internet anywhere in the world? Why wouldn't we do that? But Brian Palmer from CCHL have got this Macquarie Bank, I think, one of the companies in Australia that is a professional advisor about privatisation to do this assessment of Enable. The assessment hasn't come out yet, but it will later this year, and we will need to fight Enable, the privatisation of Enable as well. So please bear that in mind as we continue this campaign with DP World. And I'm sorry, at the very start of the meeting, I should have thanked NZDE, New Zealanders for a Democratic Economy, and the campaign they run, COP, Keep Our Ports Public. They are the group behind this behind the meeting tonight. And Harry at the back has been one of the driving forces on that. Give Harry a round of applause, people. And it remains for me to say that we are well ahead of time, which is fantastic. Let's have a round of applause, people. You know, woohoo! We're well ahead of time, which is a great excuse for you to go and grab something to drink, something alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and mix and mingle and meet someone, talk to somebody that you don't know, but making new friends is what this is all about. Okay, thank you again for coming. Big round of applause, people, all of you, for all of our speakers. Thank you.